An Afternoon with Ninja Brian.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I knew nothing about you until I know. Don't beat me up. I am sorry.
No, it was totally mutual.
I am sorry.
I didn't know anything about it.
I have been initiated though. Like I see what you see a little bit, right? But I have some questions.
Yeah.
So do I have your formula correct? You're like 1 part comedian, 1 part physicist, 2 part storyteller, 1 part musician. Is there secret sauce?
I mean, my body does make certain fluids, but...
Which I've heard about in your music.
Yes. Yeah, we talk about those a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds about right?
Yeah.
All right. I thought you were telling me no and just enlighten the people.
No, I mean,
It's okay.
It's already... Didn't expect this to go off the rails so quickly.
So quickly, I know.
Yeah,
That
so
was
what did you
planned
say? You said musician...
Comedian, physicist, storyteller, musician, secret sauce.
Is there anything else? That actually sounds asshole, maybe.
A dash?
Yeah, troll, I think
okay,
would be
a little bit
in there.
All right. Tell me about the mask.
The mask?
Yeah, I have some technical questions.
Okay, yes.
Is there more than one?
Well, actually, there is not more than one. I've been using the same mask since, I know it's a terrible idea. And yeah, there should be more than one. It's the first mask we ever got. So in the original ninja costume, I think Dan found it on eBay or Amazon or something like that. You can still find it, and you guys, but someone might even be wearing it today. And it just has like a hood, and then some kind of scarf that oh wow, that's pretty cool when I do that. Some kind of scarf that goes across the face. And
So it's moist in there.
Well, like that would be pretty airy, but we didn't like the look of it, and so somehow, and I can't remember where, we found a better ninja mask, and it fit so well that no other mask I've ever tried has duplicated it. And it's also, so the real problem though is that you moved away at a good time, because it's made out of a synthetic fabric and still smells like I've been using it for 10 years.
That was part of my question, right? Because I was going to ask you what it smells like. So does it smell like your shampoo? Does it smell like just body? Does it smell like...
So the only way to describe it is take a cloth and put it in front of your face, and then have everything that comes out of your mouth and nose, infuse it for 10 years.
Okay.
And that's what it smells like.
So if you ever disappear, that's what they're going to give the dogs?
Yes, to find me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more follow-up question about this
wait.
mask. So like you tour, right? Like you go, and you have one mask. So this mask is very special.
Yeah.
So does it go in your carry-on? And if it does that cause you traveling problems?
Actually doesn't. Again, I'm not smart. It just stays in our checked luggage. And if something happened to it mid-tour, we'd be in trouble. Like we'd have to figure out a solution. So there's one show Dan and I did a long time ago now, probably when we were first starting out, where I thought he was bringing the ninja costume and he thought I was bringing it, and we just were we showed up at this place and didn't have anything, and so what did we do? We raided the Lost and Found at this venue. There's still pictures, I think they're on our Facebook, and I'm wearing this kind of like orange women's rain jacket and a ski mask, a knit hat, not even a ski mask, a knit hat that we cut a hole in to hide my face. And it looks, it's a look. I like it. I really like it. It's actually, I look back fondly on those pictures. Performance that night had a little more rakish attitude than usual.
Right. Is it so? There's documentary evidence of this.
I believe there are photos we've posted. This would be probably 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, and they'd be on our Facebook.
That's hilarious. I like that. What's the story behind your name?
Ninja Brian. Well, that's because I'm a ninja. And
so when did you find out that you were a ninja? Is it something you always knew, or is it something that came to you?
Okay. I became a ninja when I met a guy who was like, "Do you want to be in a band called Ninja Sex Party?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be the ninja part of that, and he can be the sex part of that." I think I never realized I was good at staring until I became a ninja. And then it was kind of the secret skill that I had, that I realized that I could go for a long time without blinking.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so there was definitely let's say there were like parts of my personality that were ninja-like that kind of came to the fore when I put on the mask. Yeah.
So you mentioned staring, and I actually had some questions about that.
Okay.
Right. So your eye communication game has got to be top notch. When that's all you're using on stage. So, what's the difference between a stare and a glare and a glower?
Oh, okay. No, I'm glad you asked this. I wanted to get into this. A stare, a stare is just like you keep your eyes open, right? But a glare. It's all here. I never like to get into craft, but yeah. So I think for a glare, like you do that, and a glower is more with the mouth too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the rest of your face doing underneath the mask?
You can actually, in the right light, you can see it. My lips kind of stick out because the thing is so it adheres to my face. Often, if I'm really staring hard, like my whole face is tensing up like that. So if I'm really, you can see this in a lot of videos. If I'm really doing that, like I kind of tense up the whole face. Oftentimes, though, I'm just like trying to relax it as much as possible. But I don't think about it really just with the eyes when I'm on stage. It's kind of the whole face doing it, and that's just the part that people can see.
Do you have to massage your face afterwards?
I don't have to, but if anyone wants to, like, we can talk.
So Ninja Brian is murderous. Do I understand this correctly?
That's an understatement, but yeah.
An understatement. So I have a special question for you because I have a theory about murder. Okay, like.
Can we just, before we get into that, can I just say publicly, I do not condone murder. I think it's bad, just in general, just to put that out there.
That's good. That was follow-up question,
Okay,
B, so I'm
great,
glad
yeah.
that you
Great.
got ahead on that. So I think that everybody has a murderer. I don't think that everyone gets murdered. Mm-hmm. I think that we all have a murderer, right?
You mean someone who would kill us?
Yes,
given the
like maybe your
opportunity?
murderer's in Hawaii, maybe your
They're
murderer's
probably in this room.
right here. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what all those math questions are about. I want to know
Yeah.
how they're gonna find out.
Yeah.
What do you think about this theory? Do you think we all have a murderer, or do you think that that's
I don't.
just a way to live fearfully in the world?
I mean, look, I think if you get in the wrong situation, probably you could find one. I don't know. I don't like to think of the world as some place where you're just kind of walking along waiting to be killed. That's kind of depressing. But yeah, I think everyone probably has an enemy they don't know about, is maybe one way to say it, right? There's someone out there who hates you, and you're not even aware of that person. Like you did something somewhere along the way, and usually it happens while driving. I think.
Right.
Like there's somebody who's mad at you for some reason that wasn't even on your radar.
See, I see the murder theory as like empowering because we all just have to avoid our murderer, right? And we take control. I don't see it as like.
There's some like old like improv or theater game, isn't that something like this? It was like Murder and Victim, where you're randomly assigned or picked a victim, and you have to kind of avoid you have to avoid your murderer. You guys know what I'm talking about? While at the same time trying to get your victim. So it's like I remember when I was doing improv, it was like a theater game we used to warm up with is avoid the murderer but try to get your victim.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So picture it. You're in 4th grade.
Okay.
Which kid are you?
Oh, it's very easy to picture. I'm the very overweight child standing in the corner reading a book.
Okay. All right. Which book?
In 4th grade, Lord of the Rings.
All right.
Yeah.
I love that enthusiastic clap.
Yeah. Absolutely, that was me. I did not have a lot of friends. I grew up in a town that was like. So I went to a private day school growing up, and that was like 45 minutes away from where I lived. And so none of my friends at school lived anywhere near me. It was kind of like I just had no friends around where we lived. And well, I didn't have any friends at school either. But yeah, I was definitely like a nerdy outcast kind of kid. Read a lot of fantasy books. Yeah.
What was your snack game?
My snack game?
Yeah.
I had Again, I wanted to get into this. This is great. I used to take Cheez-Its and pretzel sticks and mix them in a bowl and eat those with a Slim Jim after school every day.
That is
right? If you hold a Slim Jim like this, it kind of looks like a cigarette. It's like, It's really great. It's very chic in New Jersey.
Very chic. What was your first graphing calculator?
Let's see. This is embarrassing, but I can't remember the precise model number. It was I had a scientific calculator, which was an HP, HP has this weird like reverse scientific order it does things in, and that one always took me a while to figure out. But that was the first programmable calculator, and then I got like a TI-84, which I think they still make, right? And I think I actually can't remember if it was an 82 or an 84. It was 80 something, and like when it came out, I was in high school at the time when the first one like really got mass marketed, and it was like this, oh my God, this amazing thing. I wrote programs on it. I would write little games on it. I would graph smiley faces, and it was. I had a great time with that calculator. Like I was really into it. I think it came out when I was taking pre-calculus or something like that, and just the ability to plug in the formula and have it graph it was. I remember it being like really exciting, and just sitting at home in my bedroom graphing stuff.
So did you have more friends or less friends by the time you made it?
Weirdly more.
You
wouldn't expect so, but yeah.
Was the calculator involved in any of those friendships?
We did have kind of a calculator crew at my school. And we were all like, it was all kind of the nerdy kids in the same math class, and like math club, math team, that sort of thing. Like we would share calculator tips and tricks.
That's the best.
Yeah.
What other like clubs were you part of in high school?
Oh my, science club, president. The international club. Which the only function of the international club was to get the school to subsidize us to go see Broadway musicals that were like loosely international. So we went to see Les Mis, we went to see Miss Saigon. This is like in the late 80s, early 90s, and just outside of New York. So there was always some Broadway musical that was like tangentially related. What else was there? Like there was like a music club kind of thing, musical theater society. I think that was pretty much it. There were a couple like bullshit sort of smaller clubs that had just 2 people in it, so that one person could be president and put that on their college resume. Yeah.
It's funny. All right. So I have some questions about the overlap between physicist you
Okay.
and music dude.
Uh-huh.
So the way I imagine it, you're like super serious scientist dude. That was your official title, correct?
Yes, that's
okay.
right. That's what you get to do.
Otherwise known as Mr. Theoretical Physics, right?
Dr. Theoretical Physics.
I'm sorry. So you're a man of thought among similarly credentialed men of thought. You guys create knowledge, right?
People of thought, yeah.
People of thought.
Yeah.
All right. I am getting bashed left and right.
I just want to, the theoretical physics, it is a very male and very white field, but there is a lot, of important female and people of color.
You want to name some so people can
Well, actually,
people can know?
Yeah, so one of my closest friends who I'm going to see today, she is a professor of physics here in Michigan, and so her name is Henrietta Elvang. She's a Danish, and she's an absolutely phenomenal theoretical physicist, does all sorts of important work, is faculty here, and we were kind of tracking each other. She was a little bit younger than me in grad school, and we were in grad school at the same place, and then postdocs at the same place, and then she got a job here and hired me as a postdoc here. So physics is very nepotistic also. But yeah, she's an amazing female theoretical physicist, just to name one, and she's 2 blocks away.
Super cool.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Did you ever have to hide Ninja Brian?
I don't know if I had to, but I did.
Tell us about that. What did that look like, and what happened the first time you were, unhidden?
So when I started, when Dan and I started Ninja Sex Party, it was 2009, and I was a postdoc at this place called the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, which is it's an independent research institute in Princeton, New Jersey, which is next to the university, but not part of it. And at the time, my wife Rachel and I were living a little bit farther north, so that was kind of the midpoint between Princeton and Manhattan. So, because we were both comedians and I was a musician, and so we could both get into New York pretty easily. And that's how I met Dan, and we started Ninja Sex Party, kind of like friend of a friend thing. And so I would have these days sometimes where I would be giving a talk or a lecture or something in Princeton, and then have to get on the train, go to New York, do an NSP show. Often, it was my favorite day was when I gave a lecture, and so you guys probably know our song Manticore. Do you know the song Manticore? So I have this character where I wear these blue tights and pull them up here, shirtless, and wear these little devil horns and a gorilla mask.
There's nothing wrong with blue tights.
No, they were great. After I wore them so often, I wore out the toes, and I'd have to pull in these ratty old tights, and they really pull them up too. Had an American flag bikini bottom, which I always stuff with a few socks to really make it great. Not that I need it, of course. I remember one day giving a talk in Princeton and then being like, oh shit, I gotta go. And then getting on the train, going in, doing this thing where I dressed up as the Manticore, and I was like 4 hours earlier, I was lecturing to this crew of scientists, and then I'm coming in to do this, and those guys had no idea what I was going to do at night. But very gradually, I kind of, to friends I knew would be cool with it, people who had senses of humor. Theoretical physicists they're generally they're just interested in everything. They're really great people, typically speaking. Of course, there are a few exceptions, but generally speaking, they're just broadly interested in the world, and anything that's interesting and cool, they want to know about. And so I had some close friends, and I kind of told them what I was doing, and everyone was like, oh, that sounds rad, let's come see your show. And so it started to kind of get out there, at least among close friends. But with older faculty, I thought wouldn't be cool with it. I didn't really talk about it too much. And part of the advantage of being in the ninja costume was that, there was plausible deniability, right? I could say, no, that's not me. It's some other guy in the suit. It's just a coincidence. But I never got any shit for it. I was always worried that if I got a faculty job, there'd be some student who would be not cool with it. But that actually never happened. And when I did get a faculty job, it was in England, and people are more chill about that sort of thing over there anyway. So it was really never an issue.
Cool. So you're in the musical comedy, storytelling. You're clearly curious, right? Because you don't go and do theoretical physics if you're not curious. So when I think about these topics, I think that curiosity and play and creativity and storytelling are all mashed up together. I feel they're all...
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, that was my question.
Yeah. One thing I like to tell people is that it's exactly what you said. You can't be a good scientist without being intensely curious and intensely creative. One of the best, and I heard a couple different people say this in my career as a physicist, one of the highest compliments you can pay a physicist is, they're really imaginative, they're really creative. And that's not something, I think a lot of people think, the sciences, you're just kind of, here's the experiment, you just do it, you get the answer, and then you kind of go. But most of the time, you're just throwing ideas at a wall, and you see what works. You think something's going to work one way, and in theoretical physics, then you check the math, and you say, oh, well, actually, that didn't quite work. You really have to be creative all the time. And someone who's just following the rules and doing the same thing over and over, that's not a very good scientist. I mean, there's a place for people like that, but that's usually earlier on when you're just learning. As you go up and get better and learn more, you really when you're talking, if you're doing research and you're talking to your colleagues, you're just throwing ideas out and having kind of wild conversations. And then you go home and do some math and see if you were right. Yeah, but it really is an important part of physics.
Cool. Tell me your comedy origin story.
It's, there's the growing up comedy origin story, which is my parents were big comedy fans. I remember they took me and my sister, my younger sister who's 2 years younger, to see George Carlin when I was 11. And we used to, my dad, I grew up my dad's Jewish, my mom's not, and my dad was a big Mel Brooks fan, and so I grew up on Mel Brooks movies. We used to play a lot of the Jewish comedians he was real into. We used to listen to Bill Cosby records all the time, and I know obviously the guy has his share of problems now, but you can't deny the comedy. And those albums are still hilarious, even though, well, enough said about that. When I was growing up, the big influences were Mel Brooks, George Carlin, Bill Cosby. I'm trying to think who else. Emo Phillips. If you guys know Emo Phillips, my favorite stand-up I think of all time. He just toured with Weird Al. If you saw the latest Weird Al tour, which was an amazing tour, Emo is still incredible and still performing. And so I grew up, we didn't go see comedy that much, but it was always like live comedy, but it was always comedy movies and records and stuff like that in our house. And then when I started doing it myself, it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s. I was in grad school at the time in San Diego. And I came back to visit my folks in Jersey and met up with a college friend, and he'd been doing improv stuff in New York. And I was just talking to him about it, and I was like, oh man, that sounds really fun. Like improv, like I'd seen a little bit of whose line is it anyway kind of stuff. Yeah, the original British one is also great. There's the American one too, which is also great, but the British one is the best. And I was like, oh, let me just try that. So I found a local theater sports group in San Diego, and just they were having classes, so I just went to a class. I was like, this seems fun, I'll do it. And so I just kind of started, the first time I'd ever done any acting thing really was that. And they also found out I was a piano player, and then their ears perked up because they're always looking for decent piano players who'll do it basically for free. And so I started playing piano for improv groups, and that was kind of the start. And it was through that. I mean, there's a direct line to me in grad school saying, oh man, I need to get my head out of this physics space for a little bit and do something totally different and fun. And there's a direct line from that to starting improv to just X Party, because it was through, so the line is, improv in San Diego when I moved to Boston. So after I graduated from San Diego, I did a postdoc at MIT, and there I was the music director for an improv theater in Boston, where I met this woman named Rachel, who was an actor on the stage. We've now been married for 11 years, actually next weekend. Yeah. So I met my wife doing comedy. And then when we moved to Princeton after that, I went to New York and kept doing the musical improv thing, and that's where I met Dan, and then that all led to this. So it's really from a direct line from, man, I got to stop doing so much physics, to dressing up like a ninja and singing about dicks.
It's like where to go from that one.
Yeah.
So you're living in both worlds. You've got your faculty position, you're doing your music, and you say to your wife, "I want to leave stable job."
Yeah.
And see the world, right? Like
Yeah.
how to tell us.
Well, there's another factor too. That conversation also happened right after we had our daughter. So it's not only, hey, I want to leave my job. It's like, hey, I want to leave my job and drag you and our new baby over to the back to the States. We were in London at the time, where I was a professor, lecturer. If you're being specific, they don't like the term professor unless you're the top ranks. So the decision was, so I moved to London to get to start that job in 2012. And Dan and I we decided to keep we're just going to keep doing it. So we kept trading tracks and actually got way more productive than we'd ever been before. When we were separated Dan was living in LA. He moved to LA the same year I moved to London. And we were just like, all right, well, if we don't kind of really push at this, it's definitely going to die. And let's just keep going. So that year we wrote more stuff than we'd ever written before. We did the first Starbomb album that way. Just trading tracks, and he and Aaron would write lyrics. That first Starbomb album was mostly Dan writing the lyrics. And then I would just send tracks, and he'd give thumbs up, thumbs down, and it was kind of a process. And then a year later, Dan joined Game Grumps, and then everything kind of went nuts. And then it was like, okay, well, let's just kind of see where this goes. In the first couple of months, it was clear that something was happening. But actually, you guys probably know when Dan first joined Game Grumps, which was very sudden, there was an immediate outpouring of extreme hate. Because it's a different thing, right? Who's this new guy? Totally makes sense. He was completely prepared for it. And it was like, well, let's see if, this tide turns, which it did pretty quickly because he's Dan. And so then, like a few months after that, it was like, okay, things seem to be like we're kind of in the public eye more than ever. And then about a year, I guess, a year and change after that, it became clear that it might be a good idea to leave physics and then go do this full time. The problem was that I couldn't just, at that point I had a baby, a wife, couldn't just bring them to the States and hope that everything worked out. That'd be really irresponsible. And like you said, the job in England was not only stable, it's a permanent job. Like I couldn't be fired. They don't call it tenure there, but it's basically the same thing. So it was like, yeah, do I leave this job from which I can never be fired and the rest of my life is just mapped out? I can see 20, 30 years down the road, or try for, like, go from this extremely stable option to the most unstable industry. Not only entertainment, but YouTube, right, where it's really totally out of your hands. The algorithm could change, who knows? And then what really clinched it was Aaron at Game Grumps offered me a job running their social media, which had a salary and health insurance and all that stuff. And it was like a way to guarantee that, at the very least, we'd have some money and be able to afford healthcare if we needed it. And so this is the hardest decision I think I've ever made in my life, leaving. Rachel, my wife, really did not want to leave London. She loved London. It was great. She was not sold on LA. She was like, everybody there is, skinny and blonde. So it took some convincing. We went out, we visited. I tried to show her around. Not that I knew the town particularly well, but I'd been coming out there to film videos and stuff with Dan over the previous years. And so eventually we were like, look, so here was my reasoning behind it was, if I don't do this now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life, and I would rather live with failure than regret, right? So that was really, actually it was the same reason we had a kid. Because it was like, look, we could have a kid, we could not have a kid. We have a great life without a kid. We kind of want a kid, I think many people are ambivalent about kids, but it was like, look, if we don't have one, there was a 100% chance we're going to look back on this now and be like, we should have done it. Like, so that, after kind of dithering about it for years, we decided to have a child. And it was the same basic calculus that led to the decision, which is, if we don't do this, it's going to be the thing we always look back on, the thing when I'm, 60 or whatever, that I look back on and be like, fuck it, I should have gone for it, and I didn't have the guts to go for it. And so luckily with her support, we moved. I accepted the job at Game Grumps and we moved to LA. And it was still like, I don't know, the university I was at in London was nice enough to give me a year leave so I could actually come back if I had to. They did not need to do that. It was really generous. And then 2 weeks after we moved to LA, Ninja Sex Party's third album, Attitude City, came out. And it was like, it was a hit. Like it did really well. And we were like, okay, actually, this seems like it's going. So it was the first album we'd released after Dan joined Game Grumps, and so we just had no context, for what it could do. I guess that's not. Starbomb came out, but it wasn't Ninja Sex Party. So it was like, if it's just me and Dan, what is that going to do? And people liked it, and it sold well, and it was like, okay, actually, I think this is all right. And so even though I had a year's leave from the university. So that was the beginning of July, we moved, album came out, I think it was like July 17th or something, 2 weeks later. And then in the beginning of September, I told the university that I wasn't coming back. I mean, also, moving internationally sucks. Maybe if it's not driving to, Hamilton or something, but moving across the seas, overseas, it's a big pain in the ass. And so we were like, this seems like it's going great. We really don't want to pack up all our shit again. Like, let's just commit to all in. And thanks to you guys, it's still happening. So thank you.
So you recently performed on Conan.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
Sorry.
How'd that happen?
It was, our agent got us the gig. Basically, it was really sudden. We had just done a show in New York. And I was on the plane flying back. Dan was still hanging out with his folks in New Jersey, and we found out we got it. And it was this whole like, can we actually make it happen? Twerp, who travels with us and has their own tour, was scheduled to do a show in Boston the next day or something, and they had to could they cancel it? Could they postpone it? They postponed it until just a few days ago, right before we started this last leg of our tour. And so for a while it was just like, do we have all the pieces? Can we physically get everybody there? That turns out we could, and so we got the offer on a Friday, and 3 days later we played the show. So, but it was really just our agent got it for us.
So where were you when you got this offer? Like what?
I was on a plane.
Okay.
And I didn't want to spring for the $50 for Wi-Fi for the whole flight, so I did the cheapie, do it for half an hour, and then I checked my phone, and it's like a million text messages and a million emails, get back to me now from our manager, Brent. And then it happened. It was a great experience.
Cool. You have any weird fan stories you can tell?
No. No, honestly, not really. Everyone, oh, you guys, you're so nice and supportive. Sometimes, every once in a while, you have an interaction where you're like, all right, we're 20 minutes into this conversation, maybe let's move it along. But that's only because people are so nice and gushing and supportive, and it means a lot to me to hear. So something we hear a lot is that our music or our comedy or whatever help people through a tough time, and it's amazing to hear that. And I never, every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh my, this is not something I ever expected when we started doing that. So really, fans, you guys are the best. I don't really have any bizarre stories. People are just super nice and great.
Cool. So in the era where we find out that somebody has abused or molested somebody every 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Do your songs feel different?
They do a little. Well, it's not the abused or molested thing so much. The one song that, to me, I don't regret doing it. I still think it's funny, but I don't want to perform it live anymore, is If We Were Gay. Because I think, when we wrote it, I was like, is this homophobic? I don't think so, but I'm worried. I try to be very, very sensitive about these issues. And, now, especially kind of in the, current political climate and everything like that, the last thing I would want is for someone to feel marginalized or disrespected, or just insulted by anything we do. So I don't think we try to be very careful about always painting ourselves as the fools. We actually have a strict rule: no violence towards women ever, ever, ever. But kill constantly guys, but which is maybe a bad precedent too. But it's something we really do think about a lot. And so I still, maybe this is just me being too careful. I always err on the side of being too careful about these things. I do worry that some people read If We Were Gay as homophobic. At this point, it's out there, and there's nothing we can really do about it. And I actually don't. I will defend that song. I don't think it is, but I worry it could be perceived that way. But it is something we think about a lot when we're writing our songs and are very sensitive about, or try to be. And when we're not, actually, I can't think of any examples of songs we've written that people have been upset about en masse. Every once in a while, something happens on Game Grumps because they're talking off the cuff, where somebody says something that isn't cool or is perceived to be uncool or something like that. That happens very occasionally with Game Grumps, which makes a lot more sense because they're the amount of talking just off the top of your head. Any human being, if you talk that much on, and are recorded, you're going to say something at some point that pisses people off. It's just inevitable. But the other side of that is Aaron and Dan are deeply wonderful, sensitive guys, and when they screw up, they're like, yeah, we screwed up. Sorry about that. We'll do better next time. And they always mean it, and they always want to know when someone's mad about something they say. But yeah, when writing Ninja Sex Party songs, we think very, very carefully about being, emphasizing consent and respect and love and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of a fine line. To me, it's an interesting problem of how do you, it may be a slightly different lens to look at it, is how do you skirt the line between, adolescent and pornographic, right? Like we never want to be porny or gross. A great example of my favorite gross porny band is Steel Panther, which I deeply love. They're wonderful. Like their songs are hilarious, and they are disgusting. It's like, yeah. And we want to be on the other side of that line, not because we think it's bad to be pornographic. That's just not the band we want to be. So what we often say is we want to talk about sex like someone who's never had sex, right? Like a 12-year-old who kind of has heard of it and has an idea that, and then we Frenched really hard or something like that. And you're like, well, that's not really what, okay. So that's, that's how we think about that.
All right. What has comedy taught you?
What has comedy taught me? Well, improv, like specifically improv has taught me a lot about, just like kind of rolling with the punches about, one thing I love doing is just showing up and, doing stuff like this where it's not really rehearsed, you're just kind of talking or making up stuff on the spot. And so definitely improv has taught me the ability to roll with these kind of impromptu things really well, which work pretty well in science too. Like it teaches you how to, get up in front of a room and address people and that sort of thing. Kind of basic like crowd skills, public speaking kind of skills. That's probably the most important thing. Also, it's just fun. It teaches you how to have fun with stuff and, turn things that are otherwise depressing into humor. There's a lot of messed up stuff going on right now, and if you can kind of look at that through a comedic lens, I think it makes it more bearable. It's also taught me that backstage at a stand-up comedy show is the most depressing place in the world. Stand-up comedians are typically not the happiest bunch, but improv is like much more. It's all about building a thing as a group, and that's I think typically why I always gravitated towards improv more than stand-up. I've never really done stand-up except occasionally if you come see one of our luau shows, which are these side shows, I'll do a thing in the ninja costume, which is like a PowerPoint presentation. But that's like a stand-up. It's not really stand-up. So.
You ready for a lightning round?
Oh shit, yeah, let's do it. Hold on. Let me. Okay, go.
Dogs or cats?
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs or cat? Dogs.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Cats are a big pass for me.
All right. Cake or pie?
Definitely pie. Yeah, thank you.
Bath or shower?
Oh, bath, bubble bath.
Do you have a favorite bubble bath? A product that we can enjoy?
I can't remember the name. I mean, I do love a nice bath bomb. Of course, Lush makes wonderful products. God, I can't even remember what it is. It's in like a blue bottle. It's Dr. Something's. I can't remember it. It's
Dr.
Like
Bronner's?
No, it's not Bronner's. Dr. what? Deals. Dr. Deals. Yep, that's it. I like that stuff.
Cool. Mario or Luigi?
The correct answer is Waluigi. Right?
Beach or planetarium?
Planetarium, come on. The beach is great, but it's so bright.
Squirrels or pigeons?
Hey, don't give away the answer. Yeah, squirrels. All right. They're a lot more fun for my dog.
Oh, that's so gross. Beavis or Butthead?
I gotta go Beavis, way funnier.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you guys even remember Beavis and Butthead? Okay.
Beer or liquor?
Liquor, bourbon.
Okay. What's your favorite candy?
Favorite candy? Ooh, I'm not much of a candy guy. I do. Okay, this is gonna make me look like a monster. I love those the little pumpkins you can get that are made out of candy corn material. Yeah. And you can only get them around Halloween, like right now. You can eat generously 3 of them before you feel ill. I love them. They're awesome.
All right. And where did you want to eat when you came back to Ann Arbor?
Well, I went to Zingerman's this morning. You just got it. Let's see, what else do I miss here? Well, actually, just before I moved away from here, I guess it was in 2011, the Ravens Club opened, and I like that place. Fuck Jimmy John's. And actually, when I was living here, Frida Petito's was pretty new, too, and that place is awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Give it up for...
Guys, I do want to say, just before we move outside, it is, I maybe should have even said this at the beginning, it is really special to me to be back in Ann Arbor. I lived here for a year when I was a postdoc at the university. I have such fond memories of this town and this place and the library. Thanks to Eli so much for having me, and for Shalanya for the interview. This place was important to me and an important part of Ninja Sex Party history. At the corner, basically, of Washington and 3rd, I lived over there. That's where I wrote Dinosaur Laser Fight, You Can Do Us, the song that became Objects of Desire. I think there was the NSP theme song. All these songs that now feel like we're way, way, way back a long time ago. But those were all written. The music parts of it, anyway, were written here in Ann Arbor on a shitty keyboard that was hooked up to my laptop. So it's really special to me to be back here, and I just want to thank all you for coming, and to Eli and Shalanya for hosting this tonight. So thank you all.
This program was recorded on October 14th, 2018, at the Ann Arbor District Library.